which is the petition number 1961-2013 by Edward Marnell on unjust treatment of Cammell Laird strikers. And I'm welcoming Mr. Marnell. You're here? And I give the floor straight to you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, members, on behalf of the striking workers involved in the 1984 Cammell Laird dispute, I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity of attending your committee today and addressing you personally with this complaint. This is an important development in our 30-year campaign against the miscarriage of justice against the workers involved in the dispute. We have made consistent attempts since 1984 to obtain information, answers and justice regarding the contravention of our basic human rights. The lack of access to information and documentation has prevented us from being able to build a case to seek remedy. We have now turned to the European Parliament, having exhausted all legal and freedom of information channels at national level. We hope, with your assistance, we can make progress. In May 1984, Cammell Laird, one of the UK's largest nationalised British shipbuilders, announced compulsory redundancies for almost 50% of their workforce in Merseyside, an area of already high unemployment and poverty. We knew the aim was to close the yard, though management denied this. Failing to reach agreement with management, the workforce decided to take industrial action in defence of our jobs. At that time, we were faced with the aggressively anti-trade union government of Margaret Thatcher, and there was a violent flashpoint in the national miners' dispute in June 1984. A group of 43 workers occupied a gas accommodation rig and a Royal Naval frigate being built at the yard. Occupation at that time was a common form of industrial action. On the 3rd of September, we were dismissed for gross misconduct. This included 2 apprentices who were sacked for supporting the strike. One has since died. On the 5th of September, we were ordered to vacate the vessels on the basis of unlawful trespass. We were then served orders of contempt of court in absentia, which we believe is a disproportionate response to legitimate strike action. On the 1st of October, several men were arrested inside the yard, mainly those picketing the destroyer. On the 3rd of October, a plainclothes official who would not identify himself told us that he'd been ordered to take possession of the vessels, and unless we vacated them immediately, we risked loss of life. Special services at the time were seen climbing an adjacent tower, so we knew what they were up to. Not wanting to risk life or injury, we vacated the vessels and were immediately arrested, handcuffed to a police officer and taken to high security Walton Prison, which is a high security prison for serious criminals such as murderers. It is important to note that during the occupation, we walked past police officers on a daily basis without being challenged. This was because we operated on a rota system. For 4 weeks, we suffered degrading and inhuman treatment, held in isolation, locked down for 23 hours a day in a top security wing of the prison. This is excessive and disproportionate punishment for contempt in response to legitimate strike action, which ended peacefully and without harm to property. We have never been told how the decision was taken, and there is no related documentation. Our redundancy and pension rights were rescinded. We are unable to find work in shipbuilding again, effectively blacklisted for our activism. We filed claims for unfair dismissal and the return of our redundancy payments, but they were dismissed by the Employment Tribunal. We were denied the right to appeal. Every effort to locate official documentation related to the actions taken against us has failed. During the occupation, there was a major police and special services presence in the shipyard, and it is hard to believe there was no documentation relating to these resources and their activities at that time. Yet, apparently, there are no records. The most recent Freedom of Information request was to the Special Branch in 2012. We have made numerous requests under the Freedom of Information Act to all relevant authorities, yet we have never been offered a satisfactory answer as to why these documents are not available. This is not normal under administrative practices of the government, police and judiciary. Following the death of Margaret Thatcher, a range of confidential cabinet notes were released, revealing that on the 19th of July 1984 in Cabinet, there were discussions that Cammell Laird was to close. As we had predicted, a fact management and the government had denied. Key elements of the complaint. Our complaint highlights a breach of the principles of liberty, democracy, respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms and the rule of law, the denial of due process, denial of access to fair and proportionate justice, denial of access to information, denial of rights under data protection and denial of employment rights. Our imprisonment without fair trial and the right of defence was a breach of our right to freedom and security. We were punished for exercising our freedom of association and collective bargaining as trade unionists, and subsequently prevented from working in the shipbuilding industry, effectively blacklisted. These actions and decisions did not follow due process, and we believe were a politically motivated attack on our trade union rights. The failure to provide documents regarding the actions taken and decisions made has prevented us from building a case in our defence. In conclusion, pardon me, 7 of the men wrongly imprisoned are sadly no longer with us, and went to their grave with this injustice being with them. This sense of injustice remains with the families they have left behind. We hope that as a result of this complaint and any investigation triggered through it, new information will come to light about the decisions made at that time, which will confirm the disproportionate and unjust treatment we have suffered, recognise this miscarriage of justice, and will lead to a formal apology and remedy. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you so much.